Hey guys, wanted to make a video today to show off my astrophotography setup with the hopes that I could talk about some of the equipment that I have and why I have it as a result of most likely going through an issue that you might currently be going through. This is obviously a very complicated hobby. It's a very technical hobby, and if you kind of get the wrong equipment or you mismatch things or certain things you don't consider when you buy certain equipment, you're gonna find yourself in a very dark place, and it's gonna be very frustrating. And I got to the point where I almost quit the hobby. I was that close. I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna do visual. I'm done with astrophotography. But luckily, through some learning and acquisitions, I managed to pull myself out of it. So let's get into it. First off, the mount. This is the Skywatcher HEQ5 Pro mount. I think for beginners, if you're looking for a good, dependable mount to buy used, and I always recommend to buy used because this stuff is very expensive, and more often than not, the lifespan of this piece of equipment can last a very long time. This mount, for instance, I think is 6 years old. I bought it for $700. Again, Skywatcher HEQ5 Pro, and this is really the Toyota Camry of mounts. You see these things everywhere. They're efficient guiders. The problem that I had, unfortunately, is I just couldn't get the guiding number down to the number that I wanted, which is on the RMS scale. And this one had about a 1.5 to a 2 RMS overall rating. And so I tried everything. I tried doing east-west balance. I tried changing all the guide settings. I tried changing this setting and that setting. And no matter what I did, it wouldn't work. And so I kind of came to the conclusion, well, I'm going to try one more thing. I'm going to buy this Rowan belt mod kit from these geniuses out in the UK. I'm going to do the install, and if it works, great. If not, I'm selling this and buying the $2,300 AM5. At the time, they were $2,300. Now they're $2,800. Bought the belt mod kit, $200, did the install, changed the guiding overnight. And that just goes to show that, a lot of things in this hobby are knowledge-based in terms of your ability to actually perform what you want to do. But sometimes you just have to buy the next piece of equipment that fits you better. You just do. And sell what you have before, sell it on eBay, sell it on Cloudy Nights, but just find something that's better for your overall setup. And this is better for my overall setup because my guiding is exceptional now. So that thing changed it overnight. Cable management, I'll be honest, needs a little bit of work. I'm sure some of you are horrified by that. My really only snag worry is the cable here and with my USB slot that I have Velcroed onto there. I think I'm good. I've done some tests of it. I've ran it through a number of different trials just to make sure it doesn't snag, and it doesn't. So I think I'm okay, but it's definitely something that I'm a little bit concerned about. So I'll probably be at some point moving this up to here or something like that. But for now, it's okay. Anyways, the ZWO ecosystem, I think people tend to hate on it nowadays just because it's not open source. It's not like Nina where you can use different companies' cameras. You have to stick with ZWO cameras. In my opinion, I'm okay with that because this is essentially the Apple experience of using a computer. And I'm essentially like the 90-year-old woman when it comes to technology in terms of being able to understand it. So I need an Apple phone with the text out to size 32 to be able to understand what I'm doing because I don't understand a lot of this hobby. I was never able to do this hobby when you had to plug your computer into your telescope and use one application for the guiding and one for the shooting and one for the stacking. It was just way too complicated. So this kind of simplifies it for me. And so I think, honestly, if you're trying to keep things simple, just stick within the ZWO ecosystem. And at some point when you're a little more proficient, go with the Nina. So ASIR Plus, which I like, unfortunately, it's the CM4 version, which does not have Bluetooth, which means when I use my EAF Pro, which I got to be wireless, it's supposed to look like this. It doesn't have Bluetooth, so I have to plug it in. So that's a shame. But anyways, yeah, since I'm using a mono setup, I have an autofocuser because you're always changing filters and you always want to change the focus, which this thing is amazing. You can get these, you can get the EAF-N for like $170. So I would almost get that, honestly, even if I was shooting color. It's just too cheap and it's too easy to set up. So a great way to save money I found in the hobby is to get a smaller sensor camera. Why is that? Well, this is the ASI 533, which has a square sensor, not a rectangular, which means it works best with the 1.25" filters. Even the ASI 294 and some of the other cameras that have still crop sensors, but you use them with the 1.25" filters, which are the smaller filters, and they vignette a little bit. And it's a shame, right? Because you don't want to have images that are vignetted. But this smaller sensor in mono doesn't vignette at all with the smaller filters. The smaller filters are cheaper. The camera with the smaller sensor is cheaper. The actual filters themselves are cheaper. So by making that one decision, I save myself literally thousands of dollars, right? This is the ZWO EFW 8 position filter wheel. I currently have 3 show narrowband Antlia 4.5 nanometer filters in there. And then I have 4 LRGB Astrodon used filters that I got for 270 bucks at Mile High Astronomy, which are usually $550 filters. So when you buy used, voice is cracked, used. When you buy used, you get much better quality. And then I have it onto a Red Cat 71, which is a small refractor. This overall mount has a 30-pound weight limit. What does that mean? Well, for astrophotography, generally the rule of thumb, and this is not always true, but it's more often than not true, you want to keep it at about 15 pounds or less, or sorry, half the weight or less. So in this case, 30-pound weight limit. Everything added up here weighs about 14 pounds. I've stayed below that. And so by having a smaller scope, having a smaller sensor camera, I'm saving money. And obviously I don't have to have a much more expensive mount, which is additional money. So again, saving money. The Red Cat 71, why do I have this? Well, it's and I always forget how to say this. It's a Vetzel. It's like PEVTZL, PVETZL. I always forget. But essentially it means it's kind of a quad, which essentially means you don't have to use a corrector on this like you do a triplet or a doublet, right? And also, what's great about this is you don't have to worry about back focus. Oh my God, the amount of time I've stressed over back focus on some of the other cameras that I've used, like the GT71, which is a triplet where you have to have a perfect 55 millimeters of back focus. And then the filter in the camera adds the back focus. So you have to account for that. And then you have to use spacers. And it's like, oh, just forget it. Just give me this. I don't have to worry about back focus. I stick it on, boom, beautiful. Great, works perfectly. And the other issue that I have with the GT71 is I had this long imaging train coming off the back. And then I had this stuff at the back, which is heavy, right? Well, what's gonna happen when you have that hanging off the back? Well, you're gonna add weight. So I had a lot of camera tilt, which meant some of the stars in my images, as a result of the sensor tilting from the scope, were blurry at the end. And it was just driving me crazy because no matter what I did, I couldn't fix it. And so I sold it for a relatively cheap price. I told the person that I was selling it to, hey, this is a bit of tilt. If you can fix it, great, but I can't fix it. I got this scope. It's the, again, Red Cat 71, not an ounce, not a lick of tilt in this camera. I haven't done an analysis. I don't need to do an analysis. I looked at the stars myself. They're perfect, and I am good to go. So thank God. So I think if you got a Red Cat 51, which is a little bit cheaper used, you can get those for like 500 bucks. Get that. The 61s, they're expensive, but I just think in terms of what they give you, where they give you the diffraction spikes, they give you the saddle on the back to put your guide scope. That's, in my opinion, the Red Cat is kind of the Apple experience of the telescope world, whereas ZWO fills that for the technology world. All right, for the camera, ASI 220. Prior to this, I actually had the nicer ASI 174, which I enjoyed, but I had a hard time guiding in certain situations and I couldn't figure it out. Well, that's because the image scale of this was greater than one on my scope by about 3x, which is not what you want. You want to keep it below 3x. So I actually sold that and bought this for a cheaper price. I got it used for, I think it was 220 bucks, and it's been exceptional so far. And then I have it on a used William Optics Uniguide scope. Again, might have bought that for 50 bucks. It's been great, saved me a lot of money, and it fits in the back beautifully. I cannot stand those guide scopes that have the scope rings. Those things drive me crazy. Just give me a little rail where I can tighten it on and I'm good to go. So you can hear the anger in my voice. I've gone through nights and nights and nights of frustration with this stuff. And in a way, I'm kind of glad I did because it allowed me to kind of feel good when I finally got to a point where the images are what I wanted. It made all the hard work and sweat and tears worth it, right? But at the same time, I wish I would have made different decisions from the beginning. So again, my tips: lighter scope, smaller sensor camera, get one of these HEQ5s for used. Try to get pretty much all of this for used if possible. Besides the scope, I would get that new, just because you don't want to get one with tilt or some issues. It's just, I don't know. I always have trust issues with scopes. Unless they can send you photos. They can send you photos that they can guarantee are from that scope, you're good to go. Get a refractor. Do not try to guide or do astrophotography with a long focal length scope. You're gonna have a bad time. It's gonna be a pain in the butt. And yeah, don't cheap out, because if you try to cheap out, in the end, you're gonna be paying a little more money. It's an expensive hobby. There's really not a way around that unless you wanna get the C-Star. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy, and let me know if you have any questions. Cheers.